There's something I've been wanting to discuss recently, and it's a topic that we all know is taboo when it comes to the world of anime. Is CGI the future of anime, and is that a bad thing? I know a lot of you would argue yes, CGI is terrible and we should keep anime 2D. Why should we have 3D animation when it's so awful? Oh my god, I like the way my anime is when it's 2D. We should all go back to the 90s where everything is hand-drawn. Now, while for the most part I would agree with these statements and I believe anime works best when it's in 2D, we can't overlook 3D animation when the 2D animation we've been getting has not evolved much beyond a few shows a year. For every Demon Slayer or Jujutsu Kaisen, there's another bland looking show that gets mushed up with the plethora of series we get a season. When it comes to 3D animation, yes, a lot of it is bad, but every once in a while there's a show that is so good, so special, that it stops you from caring that it's not in glorious 2D. There was a show that aired this past winter season called Trigun Stampede, and that show was just that. For those of you who don't know, Trigun Stampede is a reimagining of the classic manga series by Yasuhiro Naitao. It's a series that has already spawned a successful anime back in the late 90s, and that series has gone down as one of the quote-unquote anime every fan should watch, along with series like Cowboy Bebop and Evangelion. The series oozes that 90s nostalgic charm, from the character designs to the art style to the way in which the story progresses with that episodic nature of the show. We follow our protagonist, Vash the Stampede, a spiky-haired, red coat-wearing, gunslinging hero who causes terror everywhere he goes. Accompanied by two reporters, Meryl and Millie, the three of them go from town to town, watching as Vash wreaks havoc around anywhere he goes, and any turn he takes. It's a series that doesn't take itself too seriously, with Vash having this all-around goofy attitude towards everything, and the plot of the anime ends up not really coming all together until a bit later in the show. This is due to the anime diverging quite early on from the source material, as the source material's original magazine, Monthly Shonen Captain, ceased publication back in 1997. The manga did continue later on as Trigun Maximum, but the anime was already greenlit and the story had to continue on for 26 episodes before this point, leading to an adaptation that, while not faithful to the source material, still provided enough fun for a 26 episode series. I'd still recommend people watch it nowadays. There was also the movie Trigun Badlands Rumble back in 2010, but neither of those adaptations are what I'm going to focus on. This is why when the announcement came in June of 2022 about a new Trigun anime being made, the first thing that came into mind, and definitely a lot of others' heads, was confusion. Really? A new Trigun anime? In 2023? But after this initial confusion, my mind went to awesome. It's been almost a decade since I watched the original Trigun at this point, and I was excited to see the story unfold once again. This time seeing a more updated take on the story, even though I love the 90s charm of the original. It was at this point we received some more info about the series. It was to be a 3D CG animation versus a new 2D reimagining of the original Trigun story, and this left a lot of fans, myself included, extremely skeptical. 3D CG reimaginings do not have a good reputation amongst anime fans. Just look at the new Ghost in the Shell series. They're not good. Which is why, when I then found out it was being adapted by Studio Orange, my skepticism was alleviated. For those of you who don't know, Studio Orange is an anime studio that primarily focuses on 3D CG animation. They're responsible for series like Land of the Lustrous, and most notably and most popularly, the fantastic adaptation of Beastars. Now, I haven't seen Beastars, but from what I did see in clips, it looked like 3D animation done right, and it looks like a good adaptation all around, which most people would probably agree. So with my doubts being diminished a bit by the fact that a pretty notable and well-received studio was making it, I felt a little bit more comfortable with this new adaptation. And then the first trailer was shown. Now, I know you shouldn't judge a book by its cover, but this trailer showed a much different Vash the Stampede than both the manga and previous anime adaptation. This Vash was younger, had a different hairstyle than his classic spiky do, and his sunglasses were more like tinted glasses than the sunglasses that added to this mystique known as Vash the Stampede. So my doubts were brought right back. Would this be a good adaptation? Would the original story be what saves it and they're just making Vash look younger? Why did they decide to make this choice? There were a bunch of questions going through my head, and ultimately, I wasn't all that down to see this new take on Trigun. I let the winter 2023 season pass and didn't watch anything from the show. I was bored one day, however, and I couldn't find anything to watch. But as I was scrolling through Crunchyroll for something new to consume for a weekend, I passed by the poster for Trigun Stampede and decided to give it a shot. I know it sounds like I've been hating on Trigun Stampede, but I was still interested in the show and wanted to give it a shot regardless, because of how fond I was from the original. So I put it on, and let me tell you, this show rips, dude. I watched the first few episodes and was amazed by the sheer detail and care that was put into this show. From the stellar soundtrack to the amazing opening song sung by Japanese Post Malone to the great voice acting to the visuals. This show is insane. There was so much to love here and I was wanting to watch more and more of it every time I finished a new episode. It's at this point I want to take some time to discuss some of the changes made to the series when compared to both the source material and the original anime. First things first. To make this clear, this is not Trigun Brotherhood. It does not follow the original source material due to the original anime needing to diverge, just like Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood did, so don't go expecting the manga to be followed through and through. Plot points are moved around and the story only gets to a pretty critical point that honestly is not that far into the manga, all things considered. Another glaring omission in Stampede is Millie Thompson, our fan favorite large machine gun carrying reporter. She isn't here. Meryl is here, but Millie is not anywhere to be found in this new series. However, with all these changes, there's still a lot to love here and I recommend everyone give this a shot regardless. Finally, I'm going to mention the one thing this video's been about, as well as the true thing that makes Trigun Stampede so special, and that is with its incredible visuals. Studio Orange really outdid themselves here. The characters move with a fluidity that oddly works for the show, and the designs did take some getting used to, but honestly, after 10 minutes, I was fine with them. There are also some scenes that honestly I'd argue look best because they are in 3D CG animation. Let's look at episode 3 for a second, where Knives invades the town of Genora Rock. Spoiler by the way. This scene where Knives is grabbing the plant and there are these weird tentacle spike things everywhere looks absolutely breathtaking. And even with the CG animation, my jaw was on the floor with how great the scene looked. Other scenes, like any scene with Wolfwood and Vash, were great. The backstories were heart-wrenching and executed perfectly in this 3D environment. You can just see a lot of love and care was put into the series as a whole. And I've been showing clips throughout, and I hope that all of you guys can see just how great this looks. Ultimately, Studio Orange really outdid themselves with this series, and it goes to show just how much better they are getting at creating 3D CG animations. Beastars already looked great, but Trigun Stampede is really their magnum opus in terms of animation quality. Not a single beat was missed, and I can honestly say that I went from being a skeptic to absolutely loving this show. I can't wait to see what comes next, as the so-called finale of the show is still going to be airing later on. Now, to go back to the original point in the video, do I think that 3D CG is the future of anime? Not necessarily. I think there's still a long way to go before people get comfortable with 3D CG animation, myself included. While I may love and prefer 2D animation and will always think of it to be the superior medium. If we get more series like this though, I may be able to shift the other way, even if a little bit.